Lesson 8, Adjectives of the First and Second Declensions, Agreement of Adjectives. Hi everyone, welcome back to Lenny's Latin class. Today we're on Lesson 8, which is on page 26. Over the past several lessons, I've been talking to you about agreement, the fact that an adjective has to agree with the noun it modifies in case, number, and gender. And today we're going to explore that a bit more closely. So let's take a look at section 81. What they're saying here in section 81 is that we're going to have adjectives that take the endings of the first and second declensions, okay? We have all three genders represented in the first and second declensions. We have the first declension, which is mainly feminine. We have the second declension, which has masculine and neuter genders. So in Latin, we're going to have some adjectives that must take first and second declension endings. Okay, later on we're going to study the third declension, and as we do, we will find that there are some adjectives that must take the endings of the third declension, but we're not there yet. That's a different class of adjectives. For now, we're studying the kinds of adjectives that must match first and second declension endings. Remember that a feminine noun of the first declension will end with the letter A, like porta. A masculine noun of the second declension will end with us, like gladius. And a neuter noun of the third declension will end with like the word pilum. Okay, so we have all three genders represented. So here's the idea. If you have a feminine noun that's in the accusative singular, you're going to take that first declension accusative singular ending and stick that onto the adjective. If you have a neuter noun that's in the dative plural, you're going to take a second declension neuter plural ending and stick that on the adjective. If you have a masculine nominative plural noun, you're going to take that same masculine nominative plural ending and stick it onto the adjective. So the same endings that you would put onto nouns, you will put on the adjectives. And the idea here is that the noun and the adjective have to match in case, number, and gender. If one of them is nominative, the other has to be nominative. If one is plural, the other has to be plural. If one is neuter, the other has to be neuter. They have to match in case, number, and gender. And that's what we call agreement between nouns and the adjectives that modify those nouns. So moving on to section 82, when you see an adjective like this that takes the endings of the first and second declensions, we call that a first and second declension adjective. Okay? Some adjectives in Latin will be third declension adjectives, but the ones we're looking at now, we call those first and second declension adjectives. And when you see one listed in a dictionary or glossary, you will often see it listed in its masculine form, and then with a dash and an A, showing you that that's the feminine form, and then another dash and showing you that that's the neuter form. So if you look up the adjective magnus in a glossary, you might see magnus What they're telling you is that it's a first and second declension adjective, and it's going to mimic those declension endings. Okay, so for the adjective magnus, we have masculine, feminine, neuter. We have magnus, magna, magnum. Okay, the base is magn, and then you'll add on all the different endings from the first and second declensions to make it agree with whatever noun it's modifying. Okay, if you have a proilium, a battle, and it's a great battle, that would be magnum proilium. If you have a great or large gate, that's feminine, it would be porta, you'd say magna porta. If you have a great or large sword, that would be magnus gladius. Okay, so the endings are going to match the endings of the first and second declension. Moving on now to section 83, let's look at some vocabulary. We have lots of adjectives here. Notice that they're listed with masculine, feminine, and neuter forms. Angustus, angusta, angustum. That means narrow. It can also mean difficult. I can't think of any related English words. Maybe you can. Next we have bonus, bona, bonum, which means good. We have lots of related English words that include that root. In fact, the word bonus has come into English as an English word. Next we have quotidianus, quotidiana, quotidianum, and that means daily. Next we have densus, densa, densum, which means dense. Next we have multus, multa, multum. In the singular it means much, in the plural it means many. Of course we have lots of English words related to this, like multitude, multiplicity, multiplication. Next we have reliquus. I did some research on this one and found that the two U's at the end do not each get their own syllable. So we'll squish those last two U's into one syllable and say reliquus. So reliquus, reliqua, reliquum. It means the leftovers, the remaining things, the rest of something. More adjectives in the right-hand column. Altus, alta, altum. That can mean high, or it can mean deep. A related English word would be altitude. Latus, lata, latum. We've already studied that one in the past. It means broad or wide. A related English word would be latitude. Another one from the past, parvus, parva, parvum, which means small. Longus, longa, longum means long. Magnus, magna, magnum. We've already studied that one as well. Here's an adverb to know, fere, which means almost. And finally, a couple of verbs at the bottom of our vocabulary section, duco, ducere, duxi, ductum. And that verb means to lead. We have lots of English words related to this one, such as the word duct, like an air conditioning duct, conductor, induction. Next we have praecato, praecadere, praecessi, praecessum. And this is a compound verb. In Latin we have the verb cato, which means go, move, or yield. And the prefix here, prae, is a preposition that means before or in front of. So literally, praecato means to move in front of, or move before, or go before. But extended from that literal meaning is the idea of surpassing or excelling other people, in the sense that you go before them. One last quick thing before we go on to our model sentences. Remember that not all nouns of the first declension are feminine. Some are masculine. For example, the word nauta. Nauta means sailor, and at first glance it looks feminine, but actually it is masculine in gender. So you might at first think, if I want to say great sailor, I'll say magna nauta, right? They both have the letter A as their ending, right? No, the problem is that nauta is masculine. So even though it's from the first declension, you'll still need to put a masculine second declension ending on the adjective that modifies it. So if you want to say great sailor, really what you would say is magnus nauta. Okay, magnus nauta, masculine form of magnus, masculine noun. So they have to match in gender. Even if it's not the exact same ending, what's important is that the genders match. Okay, let's move on to section 84, and let's look at our model sentences. Number 1 says, bonus amicus habet longum pilum. Our subject here is amicus, which means friend, and he's a good friend, so it's bonus amicus, the good friend. The verb here is habet. That's a form of the verb habeo, and it's third person singular. The direct object is longum pilum. That means long javelin, and since it's the direct object, it's accusative in case, accusative singular to be exact. So notice here that amicus is masculine, so it has to have a masculine ending on the adjective that goes with it. So we got bonus and amicus. They match in case, number, and gender. Again, that's called agreement. Notice also that pilum is neuter, and it's a direct object. It's accusative singular. So the adjective that modifies it, longum, it also has to be accusative singular and neuter. Okay, so agreement between nouns and adjectives. The good friend has a long javelin. Number 2, parvophilia altos muros videt. Okay, the subject here is philia, which means daughter. That's feminine, it's singular, it's nominative. So parva, the adjective that accompanies it, must also be singular, feminine, and nominative. So parvophilia, the little daughter. The verb here is videt. That's a form of the verb video, which means to see. It's third person singular. So the little daughter sees. And now we have our direct object, altos muros. Okay, muros is the direct object. It means walls. It's accusative plural. And it's masculine because it's the noun murus. And it's being modified by a first and second declension adjective, altus, alta, altum. So it needs to have the same case, number, and gender from the first and second declensions. So we get altos, the little daughter sees the high walls. Number 3, bonus nauta longa pila habet. Okay, here we're illustrating what I was mentioning a few minutes ago about the fact that nauta, although it's a first declension noun, it is masculine in gender. So it would be a mistake to say bona nauta. Instead, because nauta is masculine, we have to say bonus nauta, the good sailor. I know this is a little weird to think of because we're mixing two declensions. We're mixing the A ending of nauta from the first declension and the US ending of bonus from the second declension. In my mind, I want to have the same ending there. But that's not the way it is. You have to have the correct genders. So bonus nauta is good sailor. Habet, again, is the verb. The direct object here is pilum, which means javelin. Pilum is neuter, so in the nominative plural and accusative plural, it will take the letter A as its ending. So pila means javelins, plural, and that's accusative plural. So it has the word longa modifying it. That's a first and second declension adjective. It has to match in case, number, and gender. So the good sailor has long javelins. In number 4, we have the word nauta again. Parvi filii bonos nautas vident. Okay, the subject here is filii. That means sons. It's nominative plural, and we have parvi modifying it. So little sons, they both agree in case, number, and gender. The verb is vident. That's a form of video, which means to see, right? So vident is third person plural. So the little sons see. What do they see? They see nautas. They see sailors. Nautas is accusative plural. That accusative plural ending there is a first declension accusative plural ending. But don't forget, the word nauta is masculine. So we need a second declension masculine ending to go with it. So we get bonos, not bonas, okay? So they see the good sailors, vident bonos nautas. Again, we're mixing declensions. We're taking a masculine second declension ending and putting it with a masculine first declension noun. So yes, it is from two different declensions, but the unifying factor here is gender. They're both masculine. So number 4 says, the little sons see the good sailors. And in section 85, we see the rule repeated over again. A super important rule to know. An adjective agrees with its noun in gender, number, and case. Or as I like to say it, case, number, and gender. In section 86, we learn a couple of grammatical terms. An adjective can work in a couple of different ways. If it's just sitting next to a noun, modifying it, we call that being in the attributive position. If you say that a noun is something and the something is an adjective, we call that a predicate adjective. So let's quickly look at numbers 1 and 2 here. The sailor has a long sword. Nauta longum gladium habet. Okay, longum is just sitting there next to gladium, modifying it, long sword. With that kind of structure, we say that that is an attributive adjective. But in number 2, if you say gladius est longus, the sword is long. Now, grammatically speaking, the word longus is a predicate. So we're going to call that a predicate adjective. So this isn't really all that important. It's just a couple of grammatical terms for you to know. Moving on now to section 87, we're going to learn about possessive words. In the book here, they call them possessive pronouns. I don't really like that term. I prefer the term possessive adjectives because they agree with other nouns like an adjective. So meus, mea, meum is a first and second declension adjective that means my. It will take the endings of the first and second declension, just as we've been studying. Tuus, tua, tuum means your. Again, that's a first and second declension adjective. Suus, sua, suum. Again, it's a first and second declension adjective, and it means his, her, or its, or their. And the way we're going to use suus, sua, suum, as you can see in these two model sentences here, turn to page 28 and look at the sentences there about a third of the way down the page. Legatus suam filiam videt. The way we're going to use suus, sua, and suum, it's going to mean his, her, or its, or their, referring to the subject. It's going to be belonging to the subject of the sentence. So we have a sentence here, Legatus suam filiam videt. Okay, legatus is lieutenant. Videt is third person singular, he sees. And suam filiam means his daughter, not someone else's daughter, but his own daughter. So that's why sometimes they'll put the word own in parentheses, so that you know it's the daughter of the legatus. In English, that could be ambiguous. If you have a sentence that says, the king sees his son, it could be his own son, but if you're talking about another man in addition to the king, and you say the king sees his son, you could possibly mean the son of the other guy. So in English, the word his, you don't know if it's talking about the subject of the sentence, you know, something belonging to the subject or something belonging to somebody else. But in Latin, we have two separate words, one for his, belonging to the subject, and another word that means his, that means it belongs to someone else. We'll learn about that other word later in the future. But for now, just keep in mind that suus, sua, suum means his or hers in the sense of belonging to the subject of the sentence that you're talking about. Again, in sentence 2, we see filia suum amicum videt. The daughter sees suum amicum, her friend. And again, they've put the word own here in parentheses. The daughter sees her own friend, not someone else's friend, but her friend. And again, notice that whatever the gender is of the thing being possessed, suus, sua, suum has to match that. So the word here, amicum, is masculine, so suum gets a masculine ending. The person possessing it is feminine. The philia is a girl, a daughter, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the gender of the thing being possessed. The amicum is masculine, so we get suum amicum. Again, suus, sua, suum is a first and second declension adjective. It will match the noun it modifies in case, number, and gender. It's not going to match the subject, the one possessing something. It's going to match the noun it modifies. And we see that again in number 1, suam filiam. Filiam is feminine, so suam takes a feminine ending. Okay, let's move on now to section 88, and let's do some translation exercises. Don't write out the ones in section 88. Let's just do them verbally together. And then when we get to section 89, you can write those out for homework. In number 1, we have bono amico. Keep in mind that these aren't really sentences. They're just sentence fragments for us to practice with. So this looks to me to be dative, singular. Bono being the adjective that means good. That's bonus, bona, bonum. And amico is friend. That's the word amicus. So bono amico, being dative singular, could mean to a good friend or for a good friend. Number 2 is the same as number 1, except plural. Bonis amicis. Of course, it could be ablative plural, but it's probably dative plural. To good friends or for good friends. Number 3 is next. Multorum proeliorum. This is genitive plural. Proeliorum is a form of the noun proelium, which means battle. That's a second declension neuter. So proeliorum means of the battles. And multorum means much or many. And you can see it's agreeing with proeliorum in case, number, and gender. So we'll translate number 3 as of the many battles. And number 4, longi muri. Muri is a form of the noun murus, which means wall. That's a second declension masculine noun. So here we have longi muri. It could be nominative plural. It could be long walls. Or it could be genitive singular, of the long wall. Number 5, multi causi. As far as the ending goes, these could be nominative plural, genitive singular, or dative singular. If it's nominative plural, it would say many causes. If it were genitive singular or dative singular, it wouldn't really make much sense. Number 6, parvum filium. Filium is the noun filius, which means son, and parvum is the adjective parvus, parva, parvum, a first and second declension adjective that agrees with it in case, number, and gender. So it looks like the accusative singular, it could be the direct object in a sentence, and it means the small son. Number 7 is next, boni fili. Fili here is the noun filius, which means son. And remember that these second declension nouns that end in ius, they can have the genitive singular form truncated to just one I. And that's what it looks like here, boni fili, meaning of the good friend. So genitive singular there. Number 8, tua pila. Remember that the noun pilum is neuter, and any neuter noun will have its nominative plural ending in a. Also, any neuter noun will have the same endings for both nominative and accusative. Tua means your, so tua pila could be your javelins, and it could be nominative or accusative plural. Number 9 is next, per densas silvas. Per is a preposition that means through. Silvas is the first declension noun silva, which means forest. So per and silvas together says through the forests. Silvas is accusative plural. And densas means dense. That's a first and second declension adjective that is agreeing with silvas. So number 9 says through the dense forests. Number 10, mea amicitia. Amicitia means friendship. Mea means my. So this says my friendship. To me it looks nominative singular. Number 11 is next, trans suam provinciam. Okay? Trans is a preposition that means across. Provinciam, that's the first declension noun provincia, which means province. Here it's in the accusative singular. The preposition trans requires the accusative case. So trans and provinciam together will say through the province. The adjective suus, sua, suum is here, modifying provinciam, and that can mean his, her, or its. So number 11 will say through his province, or through her province, or through its province. We don't know who the suam is referring to because there's no context here. Number 12 is next, cum bono nauta. Okay, the preposition cum is here, that means with. Cum requires the ablative case. So we see the word nauta here with the macron over the letter A. That's ablative singular. So cum and nauta together will say with the sailor. And we have the adjective bono here modifying nauta. Remember that even though nauta is a first declension noun, it's not feminine like most other first declension nouns. Instead, it's masculine. So we have the ablative singular masculine form here for bono. That form comes from the second declension. Remember that this adjective here is bonus, bona, bonum, and it will take the endings of the first and second declension. That's why we call it a first and second declension adjective. So number 12 says, with the good sailor. Okay, let's go on now to section 89. Turn off the recording and do all these exercises on your own. And when you're finished, turn the recording back on and we'll go over them together. Okay, hopefully by now you have finished your homework. Let's go through the exercises in section 89 together. Number 1 says, Silvai magni pagi sunt dainsai. Silvai is the subject. That's the first declension noun silva, which means forest. Here it's nominative plural. It's being possessed by pagi. That's the word pagus, which means district or canton, but in its genitive singular form. So Silvai and pagi together will say the forests of the district. Magni is modifying pagi. So the forests of the large district. And the verb is sunt, that means they are. Dainsai is a predicate adjective, that means dense. Notice that it's agreeing with Silvai in case, number, and gender. So number 1 says, the forests of the large district are dense. Number 2 is next. In densa silva sunt multi equi. Okay, we start out with a prepositional phrase, in densa silva. Here we have in taking the ablative case, so it means in as in inside. So in densa silva says in the dense forest. Sunt means they are, or here we can just translate it as are. And multi equi means many horses. That's the second declension noun equus in its nominative plural form. So number 2 says, in the dense forest are many horses. Number 3 is next. Angusta via est inter silvam et rodanum. Okay, the subject is via, that means road or way. It's being modified by angusta, which means narrow or difficult. The verb here is est. That means he is, she is, or it is. And sometimes you can translate it as there is. Finally, we have a prepositional phrase, inter silvam et rodanum. Inter means between, and it takes the accusative case. So silvam, which means forest, and rodanum, which means Rhone River, are both in the accusative case. If we translate est as there is, then we could translate number 3 as there is a narrow road between the forest and the Rhone River. Number 4 is next. Romani magna castra movent. The subject here is Romani, that means the Romans, and the verb is movent. That's a form of the verb moveo, which means move. Here it's third person plural, so our subject and verb together say the Romans are moving, and the direct object here is castra, that means camp, and it's accusative plural. It's being modified by magna, so we'll call magna castra the large camp. Remember that we translate the plural noun castra in a singular kind of fashion, just as the word camp. So number 4 says, the Romans are moving their large camp. Notice how I threw in the word there because it was implied by the Latin. The word there was not actually present in the Latin, but I threw it in because it's implied. So the Romans are moving their large camp. Number 5 is next. Copiae multis gladiis et pilis pugnant. Okay, the subject here is copiae. In the singular, it can mean supply. When it's plural, though, it can mean troops or forces. And that's what we have here is nominative plural. So the troops, and then the verb is pugnant. That's the verb pugno, which is a first conjugation verb. in its third person plural form. So our subject and verb together say, the troops are fighting. Then we have multis gladiis et pilis. These are ablatives of means, and they're telling us the things, the instruments or tools by which a task is being accomplished. Gladiis is the ablative plural form of gladius, which means sword, and pilis is the ablative plural form of pilum, which means javelin. So by means of swords and by means of javelins, and we have the word multis here, which means many, and that's modifying both of them. So we could say the troops are fighting with many swords and javelins. Number 6 is next. Legato suam filiam in matrimonium dot. Okay, as we look at number 6, and we look around for a subject, you might look at the word legato and think it's a subject, but is it? No, legato is a form of legatus, which means a lieutenant general or an envoy, and it's in either the dative singular or ablative singular. Therefore, it cannot be the subject of the sentence. Filiam is accusative. That cannot be the subject. Matrimonium is part of a prepositional phrase, in matrimonium, so that can't be the subject. So what do? Well, we look at the verb dot. That's a form of the verb do, dare, dati, datum, and it means give. Here, dot is third person singular, so dot will mean he gives, she gives, or it gives. When there is no other word to be the subject, you look to the pronoun that's included in the verb. So here, there is no other word to be the subject, so we need to make use of the he, she, or it that's included in dot. So the subject here will be the word he. We're just assuming it's a he, just for the sake of simplicity. So what we have so far is just the verb dot. Okay? So for the sake of simplicity, we'll say dot means he is giving, or he gives. And then we have suam filiam. Okay, filiam is the direct object here. That means daughter. It's accusative singular. And it's being modified by suam, which means his, her, or its. So if it's a male, a man doing the action, we could say, he is giving his daughter. If it's a woman doing the action, we would say, she is giving her daughter. Really, we don't know the gender of the person giving the daughter because dot doesn't tell us and suam doesn't tell us. Suam is going to agree with the gender of the noun it modifies, not the gender of the noun doing the action. So there's really nothing in this sentence that tells us if the subject is a man or a woman. Again, for the sake of simplicity, let's just say it's a man. He is giving his daughter, and now we have in matrimonium. That means into marriage. Okay, it's the preposition in, taking the accusative case. Matrimonium means marriage. So what we have so far is he is giving his daughter in marriage, or it could be a woman. She is giving her daughter in marriage. And now we have one last word to look at, and that's legato. Okay, I'm sure that you can figure this out on your own. Remember that legato is either going to be dative singular or ablative singular. Remember all the uses of the ablative, and then remember that the dative case is for the party that is the recipient or the beneficiary in the sentence. Here, legato is dative singular. It's the beneficiary or recipient, also known as the indirect object. So the word legato here, that's telling us who the daughter is being given to. So we'll translate legato as to the legatus, to the lieutenant, to the envoy. And number 6 will read something like this. He is giving his own daughter in marriage to the lieutenant. Number 7 is next. Helvetii reliquos Gallos praecadunt. The subject here is Helvetii. That's the tribe of the Helvetians. Praecadunt is third person plural. That's a form of the verb praikato, which means to surpass or excel. The direct object is gallos, that means the Gauls, and reliquos means the rest of, or the remaining. Okay, so number 7 says, the Helvetii surpass the other Gauls, or the remaining Gauls, or the rest of the Gauls. Number 8 is next. Fere quotidianis proiliis cum Germanis contindunt. Okay, this is another sentence where there is no other word to be the subject of the sentence. So we need to make use of the pronoun that's included in the verb. The verb here is contindunt. That's a form of the verb contendo, which means strive, fight, or hasten, and it's third person plural. So we'll translate contindunt as they are fighting, they are striving, or they are hastening. Notice that proiliis can't be the subject, Germanis cannot be the subject. Cum Germanis is a prepositional phrase that means with the Germans. Notice that cum is taking the ablative case here. Fere is an adverb that means almost. Proiliis is a form of proilium, which means battle. That's a second declension neuter noun. Proiliis is ablative plural, and it's basically an ablative of means. So we'll say with battles, or in battles, or by battles, something like that. And quotidianis is modifying proiliis. That means daily. So fere quotidianis proiliis would say something like in almost daily battles. So number 8 will say this. They are fighting with the Germans in almost daily battles. Well, that brings us to the end of this lesson. Let me remind you again to practice saying things in Latin, and I'm going to do that with you right now. Let's turn back to our vocabulary on page 26 in section 83, and let's practice with some of these new words for this lesson, and let's make up some sentences verbally with them. I see the verb duco there at the bottom. That means to lead. What if I said, duco kopias? I'm leading the troops. What if I wanted to say, I'm leading the troops into battle? I could say, duco kopias in proilium. There I'm using the preposition in with the accusative to mean into. What if I wanted to say, I'm leading the good troops into battle? Kopiai is feminine, so I could say, duco kopias bonas in proilium. What if I wanted to change the verb around and say, you are leading the troops into battle? I could say, ducus, you are leading. Ducus kopias in proilium. He, she, or it is leading. Ducit kopias in proilium. We are leading the troops. Ducamus kopias in proilium. And so on and so forth. Looking at the model sentences in section 84, number 1 talks about having a javelin. Let's give the javelin to different people. Nauta habet pilum. Sailor has a javelin. Masala habet pilum. Masala has a javelin. Habemus pila. We have javelins. Habetis pila. Y'all have javelins. Let's say the sailors have javelins. We need a plural noun and a plural verb. Nautai habent pila. The sailors have javelins. Back to our vocabulary. Let's use praikato. Let's see if we can use that for something. Let's say that one sailor excels the others, or he surpasses the others. It's a third conjugation verb. So let's say nauta praikadit reliquos nautas. Okay, the sailor surpasses the other sailors. Notice that we said reliquos because the word nauta is masculine. So the sailor surpasses the other sailors. Nauta praikadit reliquos nautas. Let's try a prepositional phrase. Let's say, multi nautai sunt in Rodano. Many sailors are on the Rhone or in the Rhone. Okay, well, you get the idea. Again, what I'm doing here is I'm looking around, I'm getting ideas, and I'm just making up sentences spontaneously. I'm basically improvising Latin sentences and saying them for practice. And as I do that, that makes it easier for me to manipulate the various verb forms and noun forms. It's excellent practice. And here's a secret for you. When you get really good at it, reading Latin texts becomes much, much easier. Okay, that's it for Lesson 8. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you next time in Lesson 9.